So this is the story. And now I'll just the result that we have. They're very, very important. Now what we find, in fact, we do not find any evidence of the ancestry coming from Iran into the Indian subcontinent. We do not find the ancestry of Central Asian involved in South Asian population. It is a separate ancestry. Even no Anatolian roots are found, in fact, in South Asia. The contact is happening much later, in fact. So we have to discard number of hypotheses. And after 2000 BC, of course, there is more interaction between the Indians or the people of South Asia and then Iranians and Central Asians after 2000 BC. But right, in the early stage, we have this particular. And what is also important that the DNA, which was maybe in the next slide you can see, the DNA that was developed maybe around 10,000 BCE. We have studied the remains from 10,000 BC era from the area between Afghanistan and Iran, and there it was revealed that around 10,000 BC, the hunter-gatherers, because around 10,000 BC the people were in hunting-gathering stage. Around 10,000 BC, the hunter-gatherers split into two groups. One came to Indian subcontinent, you can see here, after the split they came here, and one went to Iran. So the Iranians, they got mixed up with the Anatolian farmers. So there, we can see that, that their genetic history is mixed with Anatolian farmers. But here, in Indian subcontinent, in South Asia, they were developing their own ancestry, a very distinct ancestry that is called the South Asian ancestry. So there, you don't find any mixing of Anatolian or, very steppe population here. So this is very, very important that the genetic history was developed maybe around 10,000 BC or 12,000 years ago. And the result also clearly indicates that, there is a continuity from 10,000 BC till Harappans and from Harappans till modern times. So this is what, we have found. And what we did, in fact, we analyzed the data, the modern data, the samples of the modern people. CCMB has, the huge index of the modern samples. And almost now they have the samples from all over the world. So huge data they have. So we compared nearly 3,500 people from South Asia. And we chose, people from different groups, from different religious groups, from different, maybe caste and creed. Nearly 140 different groups were included in this. We are not left any, group, unturned. And then, of course, we found that, that the Harappan, ancestry, which is continuing from 10,000 BC. Now, the same ancestry is found in major part of the South Asians. And we found that, right from Andaman Nicobar to Kashmir, and from Afghanistan to Bengal, in all these people, we found Harappan ancestry. So all of us, who are gathered today for the lecture, all of us are the descendants of the Harappans. So this is very important. And then, we do not find any evidence of, the mixing, or there is a mixing, of course, but the Persian people or the steppe people have not contributed to the development of South Asian ancestry. There's a small mixing happening, and that mixing is there right from the early stage. Because at Mehergarh, around 7,000 BC, we find people have started developing long-distance trade. And because of that, there was a lot of mixing happening. But that mixing is very small, maybe 4%, 5%, or maybe maximum 8 to 10%. But when we have more than 30% ancestry of one group, that means we have emerged from that particular group. And all of us have more than 30% Harappan ancestry. And the Harappans have more than 30% South Asian ancestry. So that means we are the indigenous people, and there is no change. There is no maybe discontinuity of genetic history for last 12,000 years in Indian subcontinent. And there here itself, the Aryan hypothesis is completely demolished, because it is believed that Aryans came here, they killed the local population here, and they pushed some people, surviving people, to South India. So if that was happening, if the Aryans had come here, then two things would have happened here. If so-called Aryans, we do not know, who are the Aryans, but if the so-called Aryans had come here, then there could have been discontinuity in the genetic history. They could have introduced a new genetic history in South Asia. That is not happening for last 10,000 years, 12,000 years. And secondly, when somebody comes from outside, or when we go to some other maybe area, maybe alien area, new area, we always carry with us our cultural elements. So if so-called the Aryans could have come from maybe steppe region, or from maybe some parts of maybe Europe, then they could have brought with them their maybe cultural elements here, and they could have implanted those cultural elements in South Asia, which is not happening at all. In archaeological data also, it is quite clear that there is a continuity, from 7000 BC till modern times, and at no stage, we find the implantation of any alien culture in Indian subcontinent. There is innovation happening at regular intervals, but that is an indigenous, maybe local elements, local innovation happening. But this has not happened. So that means the Aryan hypothesis is all, without any base, and there is no substance in that. I don't know why, Max Muller and some of the earlier scholars, they really very adamant, in fact, to prove that the early developments had taken place, in fact, in Indian subcontinent because of the people coming from outside, and they wanted to show that we are not capable of undertaking any kind of development. Either it is development of domestication or village life or even city life. So they wanted to prove that, but unfortunately now we have very strong evidence, and now we can boast of a such a great heritage and cultural developments in South Asia. So this is very important, and the evidence that we are getting now is also very interesting. We have analyzed the data from Shari Sokta, a site in Iran, and also data from Gonur, one site in Turkmenistan in steppe region. And both the sites, Shari Sokta and Gonur, they were contemporary to the Harappans. Both the sites were excavated, and they found a lot of Harappan material there. So it was hypothesized that Gonur and Harappans, had interaction, or Shari Sukta people and Harappan people had interaction. That was hypothesized on the basis of actual data found there. And then we analyzed the data from these two sites, the genetic data from these two sites. And what we found that in the population of Gonur and also Shari Sukta, we find the Harappan genes present there. But we did not find their gene present in the Harappan population. So this is very important. So that means, that, it was the Indians, in fact, who started going out first. Maybe they went to Iran, maybe for trade purpose. They got mixed up there. Because of that, the Harappan ancestry got mixed up with the Iranian population there. They also went further to maybe, to Central Asia in the steppe region. And they got mixed up with the steppe population. And there, we find the presence of the Harappan, ancestry there, or Harappan genes. So this is very important. Instead of, so-called Aryans coming from outside, we can propose that, maybe there is an out of India hypothesis. We can also propose that perhaps the Indians probably first started going out, started venturing out. And later, in fact, there was some kind of reciprocal movement happening, at some stage. And then, it started happening more, in fact, after 2000 BC. And therefore, we find slightly higher percentage of maybe steppe gene, in fact, present in the Indian population up to that. But at no stage, we find that these steppes or the Iranians have played any important role in the formation of our ancestry. That is not the case in time. So South Asia has perhaps the most diverse population, and it is considered to be an ethnic museum, in fact. Such a diverse population you do not find anywhere in the world. And you may be wondering that, why then we have different complexes in different parts of the country or South Asia. The South Indians have different maybe complexion. The Central or the Deccan region have different complexion. The North Indian people have different complexion. Now, this complexion has nothing to do with the genetic history at all. The DNA does not, determine the complexion of the people. It happens because of number of factors, like geography, for example. Geography, determines the complexion of the people. Also, the environment also determines complexion of the people. The food habit also determines complexion of the people. So because of these factors, we find the formation of different complexions in South Asia. And a huge maybe diversity has occurred because of maybe these different factors. And here, in this map, you can see, we don't know at this stage, what was the composition of population beyond Bengal. Probably, there's an Indo-Burman language, spoken there. Perhaps, there's more Mongolite elements, in that part. Maybe there is more East Asian elements, in fact, in the population of the Northeast, Indians. But otherwise, from all the, maybe Indo-Europeans, or the Indo-European speaking people, or the Austro-Asiatic people, speaking people, or the Dravidian speaking people, they all have the common ancestry. And this is the region, in fact, where we find the presence of the Harappan ancestry, or the presence of very distinct South Asian ancestry. So major chunk of South Asia was maybe impacted by the South Asian ancestry. And it is now quite clear that we are the indigenous people. So here you can see the location of Rakhigarhi here, and then of course the location of the site of Saraswati in Iran. This is Saraswati is on the trade route, in fact, from Harappan region to Mesopotamian region. So naturally, a lot of people have maybe crossed this region at some stage, and then of course from Saraswati, of course, one route goes to Central Asia, and this is the site of Gonur in Turkmenistan, which has the contact with the Harappan people, Harappan population. And at both this, we find the mixing of the Harappan population, Harappan gene, but not their gene pattern in the Rakhigarhi population. So this is very, very important, data that we have for the first time. Then, I will also talk about the reconstruction for the first time we have done. These are the two important researches we initiated. And let me tell that, these two important researches, maybe breakthrough researchers, have come exactly after 100 years. In 2019-20, the research started at Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, and that was considered the major breakthrough or major discovery, archaeological discovery in the world. And after 100 years, in fact, in 2019, 2020, we have this, important research. So we never knew, in fact, how the Harappan people looked like. But now, we have generated their 3D image. And this is one, we, of course, we need complete data for that. For generating 3D image, we need complete data. And we need something like a complete, maybe skull portion. Basically, we have reconstructed the facial feature of the Harappans. We have to do the reconstruction of the entire body, which will take some more time. And it is very, very expensive research. And, at this stage, we have limited only to the facial reconstruction. But in the next stage, we want to also show the color of their hair, the color of the eyes, color of the skin. That is not yet, achieved, in fact. That is also possible. So we will be doing that. So we need this type of data. So this is, this is skeletal remain of a 19-year boy, Harappan boy. And you can see that, it's quite tall, maybe 6 feet tall, and he has a sharp feature. And then, of course, this is the skeleton of a Harappan woman, around 45 years old woman. And her skeletal remain also is quite intact. So we have done reconstruction for these two. We have published already in international journal. And we have submitted paper for 3 more, reconstruction of 3 more individuals that will be, appearing shortly. So what we did in Patna, we generated a lot of data. We need matrix data. We need maybe the data of the bones. What is the maybe length and maybe the thickness of the bone. So that data is required. At the same time, for the reconstruction of the facial feature, we need the anatomical, inner anatomical data also, and that was generated through this type of scanning, that we did. So this data, both these data were ultimately fed into the program, and that program in Patna, it has reconstructed step by step the 3D reconstruction. So in the first stage of Pune, we did whatever damage was there in the skull, that was repaired. Then the full skull in Patna was properly maybe reconstructed. And then of course, third stage, these muscles were put on, the flesh was put on the body, and finally the skin portion. And this is how the step-by-step reconstruction is done. And finally, I can say that this is how the Harappan people look like. This is a Harappan boy, and Harappan woman here. And now we have compared with the modern population. They look exactly, or rather, the modern people look exactly the same as the Harappan people. You can see the Harappan boy, modern boy, which looks like facial feature-wise, the anatomical feature-wise, and overall maybe features, they match with the Harappan male or Harappan boy. And at the same time, you can see that the modern woman, in fact, in all respects, she looks similar to the modern to the Harappan woman. So here also for last 5,000 years there is a continuity in the complexion. So there is no break in fact in this. Even though a lot of invasions have happened on India, number of foreigners came here, they invaded India, but that has not impacted our cultural elements, and that has not impacted our genetic history. So this is very important. So we have absorbed them. We have absorbed all the maybe invasions. We have because we have very deep roots here. Most of the civilizations were affected, and they lost their identity at some stage, but never the Harappan civilization, and those elements have continued. So this is the research which clearly indicates that it is the indigenous population. The so-called Vedic Aryans, they were all indigenous people. They have not come from outside, but they had contact with outside world, and there is some mixing happening. Then I will just show you that Vedic text refers to Purandar, fortified cities and towns, and also it talks about the layout. Now, if you compare that with the archaeological data, the only evidence of its kind comes from the Harappan sites. Now, this is of course this is the layout of a city and uncovered at the site of Mohenjo-daro. So this Mohenjo-daro was very strongly fortified, and it has got a very well laid out settlement inside. So it is matching exactly with the same data as mentioned in the text. Now these type of cities only occur after maybe 4th century, 5th century BC, not till that. So if at all the Vedic text has mentioned about the cities and towns or the Purandaras, they have discussed about maybe Harappan cities and Harappan towns. Because of this, I say that that Vedic people, or so-called, the mention of Vedic people and Harappan data is exactly corresponding, and they were the Harappan people only. So they have mentioned, they have referred to the Harappan people, and Harappans were capable of building these type of cities and towns. Perhaps the best perfect example of the description given in the text, a fortified, well laid out city. This is the plan of the site of Dholavira, and it is also mentioned that the city is usually divided into 3 parts, and Dholavira has that particular element. Dholavira is the only Harappan city which is divided into 3 parts. No other city of any subsequent period is divided into 3 parts. So if at all the Vedic text has mentioned about the divisions of the settlement or city, they have talked about the Harappan cities. Then, fortification, one of the characteristic features of the Vedic cities. Most of the cities and some of the towns, they were really, very well fortified, either by, stone wall or by brick wall, mud brick or burnt brick wall, depending upon the availability of the raw material. So at the site of Dholavira, we have, for the upper town, there is almost 18-meter thick, stone wall. And, there are 4 gates, to this. So this feature, in fact, is discussed in the text, and we have the evidence for that. And this is the earliest evidence in the Indian subcontinent. Now, this is a reconstruction of the, the entire fortified town at Harappa, based on actual evidence. So Harappa is divided into, 2 parts: the citadel, which is fortified separately, and the lower town, which is also fortified separately. And so, it is mentioned in fact in the text that Indra is accused for the destruction of the, Harappan civilization. And it is believed that Indra was the god of Aryans, and they have destroyed the fortified cities, Harappan fortified cities. And Wheeler, in fact, was the propounder of this particular hypothesis. Wheeler thought that the Harappans were Dravidian people, and the Aryans came from outside and they destroyed, the Harappan cities, which is not the case. In fact, we do not find any evidence of destruction of the Harappan city by invasion at all. There is evidence of maybe some kind of destruction, in fact, at the site of Mohenjo-daro, but that destruction happened because of the flood and not because of the invasion happening at any stage. So this is the kind of evidence. It is also mentioning about well-planned cities, the main streets, crossing, major streets, etc. And you can see that perfectly perpendicular the main streets here, running in a cardinal direction, perfectly north-south and east-west. So this is the kind of evidence which is corresponding to the description given in the Vedic text, and maybe some later Vedic text also. Then there is also in the Vedic text, of course, there is a frequent mention to the river Saraswati. We have that we have the presence of river Saraswati here. Then there is a mention about this Purandara and the towns and cities built by the Vedic people, and I have shown the evidence of that. There is also frequently mentioned the evidence of the fire worship. The Vedic people were fire worshipper. And we have the evidence of fire, or maybe evidence of fire altars only in the sites located in the Saraswati basin. We do not find this type of evidence outside the Saraswati basin. At Harappa, we do not find. At Mohenjo-daro, we do not find. Only in the in the sites which are located in the Saraswati basin. And here you can see the evidence of a big platform found at the site of Rakigadi. This was the platform excavated by the Archaeological Survey of India when they excavated the site in between 1997 to 2000. And on this, they found number of fire altars on this platform. These are some of the connecting maybe fireplaces which were maybe connected with the fire worship. Or also there's a mention about the different shapes of fire altars. The Vedic text has mentioned about the fire altars in Yodi shape or in human shape. These are some of the evidence coming from the Harappan site of Rakigadi. And the best evidence and the earliest evidence in this respect comes from the site of Kalibanga. This is the site which is in the heart of the Saraswati region. And this is the site which was excavated on very large scale. And Professor B.B. Lal was the first to associate Harappans with the Vedic culture. And he has cited some of the evidence that from the site of Kalibanga. And here you can see that there are a number of fireplaces excavated in the settlement. They're all maybe not simple domestic hearths. They're not chulas. They have different function. And probably they were maybe fire altars. But this is, you can see, one of the best example of a fire altar. Some of the European scholars have identified these as trash pits. But nobody will build these type of very well made trash pits. Simply you will take a maybe uneven pit and dump the trash there. But here this particular fireplace is very well built, in fact lined with bricks, and inside you have in situ evidence of animal bones and charred wood. So both are probably were offered, in fact, in this particular fire altar. So there's no doubt about the function of these. So these fire altars are very important, and sites located in this part only have produced the evidence in this respect. So this is a very important evidence coming from several sites. There's also mention about the different kinds of burial custom during the in the Vedic text. And we are getting the corresponding evidence at number of Harappan sites. We are getting a lot of evidence about the different kinds of burials. The Vedic text also mentions frequently about the second life. And here we have the evidence in the burials. The pots that are kept here. Sometimes we also find jewelry and also maybe some tools. You can see a copper tool here. So in the burials, we do find a lot of burial goods, either in the form of pots, like you see here, or jewelry, or their personal ornaments, or their tools. So they always believe that there is a second life, and in the second life, of course, he needs food and water. These pots may have contained food and water, and they contain, of course. We have scientifically established. We did the residue analysis of the pots, and we found the remains of Indian curry and some of the maybe preparation of vegetable in these particular pots. So we have the evidence of that. And then, of course, he needs the jewelry that he was using, in fact, when he was alive in the second life. He needs those tools when he has used, in fact, when he was alive in the second life. So there's a very strong evidence of second life, or the rebirth in the Harappan levels. And this is the one, in fact, which is corresponding with the description given in the text. So you can see the close-up of some of the burials, very elaborate burials, very elaborate rituals they have carried out. And these rituals also have been discussed, in fact, in the text. Then, there's a, water is considered to be very sacred, by the Vedic text. It was sacred for the Vedic people. And they have offered, in fact, water to sun god. They have done a lot of ablution of the water. And you find the presence of water. Harappans have brought water, in fact, in the settlements in the form of this type of wells or this type of tanks they build inside the settlements. This is the so-called bathing, maybe pond, in fact, at the site of Mohenjo-daro. But you can see the flight of steps. People were going down. They were using water and they were offering this water to the god. So that is also possible. So water is very important. Then also, that, we find this type of different containers. Some of the, pottery was used for, ablution of water, in fact, to the god. So these are the different, concepts. Then also, the Vedic text talks about the priest, the importance of priest in the settlement, his role, in fact, in the settlement. So we do find evidence of that. In fact, there is a structure, in which this particular image was found. It is identified by Marshall as the College of the Priest. So probably a priest has played an important role in the society. So there is a maybe corresponding evidence, in fact, archaeological evidence at some of the Harappan sites. And the Vedic text has also mentioned that what is it has mentioned that the men used to sport beard. So you can see a beard of this man. Then also they have discussed about the maybe the dress of the male, dress of the female. They have discussed about the jewelry of male and female. So there is a lot of corresponding evidence in that we find. These are some of the figurines shown with a very elaborate headdress. Now, description. There's a description of the plaited. The Vedic women used to plait their hair, and these are some of the examples of the plaited hair and very elaborate headdress found in the in the Harappan levels. So this corresponds with the description given in the text. And also, that description, there is a description of the jewelry, kind of jewelry, and we have this description in Patna. And yoga in the Indian tradition is said to have been founded by the sage Yajnavalkya and was later codified by Patanjali in his Yoga Sutra. It is a form of mental and physical discipline, a code of ascetics. There are several forms. And the genesis of yoga science is found, in fact, in the Harappan levels. So we have actually, this is very, very important that meditation and non-violence, the yoga tradition is considered a very, very important part of the Vedic culture, Vedic civilization. And we have some of the best representation of that in the Harappan levels. So we have the representation of the meditation, in fact, in the Harappan levels on some of the Harappan seals. We do not have any kind of evidence of violence in the Harappan levels. We do not find large number of maybe offensive and defensive implements. We do not find the evidence of the destruction of the Harappan cities by any kind of warfare. So we do not have. So that means the evidence is very clear that they followed this non-violence practice, and that is the essence of the Vedic tradition, Vedic culture. So these are some of the figurines found in the Harappan levels. These are the figurines of human figures in different yogic posture. So earliest evidence of yoga goes back to the Harappan times. And yoga science is considered the best gift of India to the world. And the genesis of that goes back to the Harappan times. Then also there's a mention, in fact, in the Vedic text, it talks about 7 sisters, Saptamatrukas. And we have perhaps the best examples of that, in fact, in the Harappan levels. So these are some of the seals on which we find Saptamatrukas, or 7 sisters, or 7 mothers on this. And it is frequently mentioned. On this, you can see a beautiful representation of Saptamatruka on the Harappan side. We do not find this in the subsequent period or earlier period. So if at all the description is there, in fact, or they have mentioned about that, because they have experience, in fact, in the form of the practice followed by the Harappans. Bull is considered to be a very sacred animal for the Vedic people because it draws the bullock cart, is an important role in the agriculture. Bull was worshipped, and we have the representation of that, in fact, in the Harappan level. Very strong representation of that. And in Channudaro, we have found a seal which has a representation of heaven, the bull, who is at once the consort and father of earth, and who is at the same time the consort of the bull, heaven, and the mother of bull, her calf. And that these themes can be understood by reference to the creation myths found in the Rigvedic and Atharvaveda. It would be fascinating to trace these themes through into the mythology of later periods of Indian thoughts. There is unquestionable, prolific and rich material to use, both from textual and from modern ethnographic sources. So we have a very, very strong evidence in this respect. This is a seal which is connected with this particular belief, which is mentioned in the Rigvedic and the Atharvaveda text. Then the Rigvedic people also worship nature. They worship trees. We have the representation of that, in fact, in the Harappan level. They worship maybe these trees. People particularly was very, very common. It was worship because trees are shown, in fact, in a proper railing. And then, of course, this concept continues in the early strike phase as a Kalpa Ruksha, and this is a representation of that. So we have this evidence